Welcome from very sunny Lisbon to this week's BTO talk on AI, generative AI, digital transformation, and much more. My name is Michael Alf, as said, calling from Lisbon with my two co-founders, Markus and Rob. Over to you, Markus.
Hi, hello from Singapore. Markus Keiper here, professor for marketing at the National University in Singapore and a co-founder of Beyond the Obvious, where we look beyond the obvious. In particular today, stay tuned. Rob.
Yes, Rob Thurner in Prague, sunny Prague today in the Czech Republic, running a workshop, leading the Digital Disruption Program with Cambridge Judge Business School, also a co-founder on Beyond the Obvious. Looking forward to today's session. Michael, we normally start with some tech news. We've got a bigger piece of news today, so take it away, please.
Thank you, Rob. Yes, we do a quick tech one. And I was on an interesting webinar from Google, and two things really stood out for me. One is the two guys talking there, or Guy and Gal talking, and they said, even though we are Google and we are in the midst of AI, we feel overwhelmed and we struggle to keep up. So don't worry if you struggle to keep up. This is kind of one reason why you have us, that we consolidate things and bring that together. We do that work for you. So that you can focus on your work. So that was one key takeaway. The other one was really an interesting discussion on kind of the infrastructure requirements of AI and AI projects for organizations, in particular mid-sized companies. Really interesting. I'm not going into the infrastructure technology, don't worry. One point, though, is interesting. A key component is that everything becomes API-centric. So you have this interface, API interface, and you need to have everything is API enabled. So you really need to think kind of through your new environments because AI use APIs everywhere. So if you want to kind of create solutions in the company, we're not talking about using ChatGPT for you. We are creating about kind of both process improvement. It needs to be everything API centric. So even if you are not a tech leader, you need to be aware that APIs play a key role and ask your tech teams that, okay, how do the APIs work here? What do we need to look at? So I wanted to share kind of these things. And then I pass on, I think, to Rob for what we promised last time at the end of the last session.
Yes, so we were talking about this framework, a framework which helps you navigate your Gen AI adoption. And we use these three letters, our acronym BTO. So just to remind you, the B stands for blueprint. So what do we mean by blueprint? Making sure that we're aligning what we're doing in Gen AI with our core purpose and strategic goals. This isn't a standalone strategy. We're aligning with understood board level strategy that then cascades down the organization. The next bit is understanding readiness, our cultural readiness. Do we have the ambition? Do we have the maturity? And are there resistance points around the organization to adopting Gen AI? And then the last piece is making sure we have the guardrails and boundaries in place. Are we trying to do things which may be putting us at risk, or do we have a consistent and risk approved way of adopting our Gen AI? So Markus, what does the T stand for?
What does the T stand for? Thank you, Rob. So after you understand your blueprint, as Rob just described, the T stands for technology and talent. So the technology part is something which Michael just described very well. You don't need to become a super duper engineer or system integrator or a ITC expert. But what you need to understand is what technology is actually driving the market where you are operating in. What are the customers using? What do they expect in the future? And where do I find the right people? Which leads us to talent. How do you actually create the right talent in terms of upskilling, upgrading, developing the leadership skills in order to become a Gen AI or AI-driven organization? By the way, we are not evangelists saying that everything in the future must be Gen AI. It depends on the maturity of your organization and your market, or environment you're operating in, because this is not only for corporations and companies, but also for government organizations, public services. So now you develop the plan for your technology and the talent development, getting future ready. What are the outcomes? What is the O, Michael?
Well, you already disclosed kind of what the O is. It's outcomes, but it's also oversight, which is the second key component of the O. You know, like the T has two, the O has also oversight and outcomes. Outcomes is everything around what is your roadmap and your execution look like. Yeah, so we're talking about a framework for an AI strategy in a company to move things forward. And of course, after building the strategy, you have to do something. You have to execute, you know, what you planned before. So that's that one. But to make that work, especially in companies, both in Europe and in other countries of the world, you need oversight. You need a governance framework. You need to look at kind of privacy, ethics. You need to look at kind of how do you measure that? How do you measure the ROI you're creating of those projects? All these things come under the O, which is really providing that oversight, kind of this overlay, and the specific execution. This is the BTO AI strategy framework. Again, blueprint. The T is for talent and technology, and then oversight and outcome, which makes the BTO. If you are interested in hearing more, reach out to us. We can either work with you and help with you, or have a bit of a kind of a conversation how that might work for you. We promised that wrap up, and now we move actually to something different. Last night was a very special moment because the President of the United States published the AI Action Plan. And you can see that here. And it's interestingly, Markus, I let you talk about kind of the name, but it's a really interesting and important one. Yes.
I just love it. The most important part on this first page is actually the first line, winning the race, which actually he must have stolen from our Maverick AI simulation, which has been launched last year. So we are considering action. But putting this aside, winning the race, America's AI Action Plan, why is it so important for you to know what POTUS has announced? Rob, before we go into the details, why should anyone in this call or in this live session and then in the organization where they are care about this?
Well, I think there's a big trade-off, and it's very clear from Trump's positioning here. To what degree do we allow free market forces to let loose? The investment does the talking. The tech players lead the assault here. And to what degree do we need some form of regulation? Of course, this raises big questions about the ethics of AI in the wrong hands, what happens there? And realistically, can the regulators really be calling the shots, or are they constantly trying to play catch up? We've seen this in the financial services sector, and it's very apparent that with the AI race, there's a lot at stake. So is it a winner takes all, or is there some form of balance here? Clearly, Trump has an America first agenda, and he's got the tech players right behind him. And it appears that his view is we want to win it all, and we want to make sure that our players, our investors, our leaders are not in some way compromised by the regulators of Europe or what sits further afield in China. In a practical level, Michael, what does this really mean for organizations?
Look, yeah, I think we're only touching briefly on that. That's a deeper conversation. And again, not making it too politically. It's more like kind of what are the different approaches? Yeah, and it's hard to tell which one is the right approach. Yeah, and kind of the world will kind of see. So if we go back, the first item here, what you can see is remove red tape and onerous regulation. So it's really basically the strategies are speed and dominance versus regulation and privacy. That's kind of the two ends of the spectrum. The Europeans are on one side of the spectrum, and the Americans now with this clear structure and strategy are on the other side of the spectrum. And we'll see kind of how that plays out. You know, it's highly dynamic. There is naturally a lot of tension now between the two, even more than before. Yeah, so that creates a lot of tension, and tension is not always easy, but it also brings new opportunities. Yeah, and this is kind of, and then of course you have the rest of the world. You're not being, yeah, so of course that's an important one as well. They will be probably somewhere in this on the spectrum. Yeah, so this is one part. What is also interesting, and maybe then kind of a lead over you, Markus, is this item here. Yeah, empower American workers in the age of AI. So it explicitly empowering, educating is one key aspect of this decision. So it plays a really important role. And you see here some of the interesting things: advancing artificial intelligence education for American youth, preparing Americans for high-paying, skilled trade jobs of the future. So you see, they already put that on the top priority list of where they're heading with their money and with their focus. Markus, any thoughts on that, especially that particular, and how, maybe a perspective also, because you are clearly in Singapore and in the Asia Pacific region, how you see that from your point of view?
Yeah, I mean, the whole document is very interesting. And Michael, if you would like to kindly would go back to the list of content. If you just look at the headlines, it tells you a whole lot. I would like to reflect in the following way. Trump is Trump. He makes the big announcements, and of course, everything starts with America. What I find interesting is the timing of his announcement in this week, because he just completed, what was it, 60 days, I believe, in his, no, it's more than 60 days, right?
6 months.
Yes, half a year.
6 months, exactly. 6 months of his term, which means we have plenty, and he has plenty of time left. So whether you believe every header here, or whether you simply think like this is interesting, POTUS will probably spend a lot of money and effort in executing this AI-driven agenda for America, which aims to lead the world, rule the world. That is the first couple of lines. In terms of leadership and upskilling the people, Michael and Rob, it clearly gives an indication that he believes that people, the future of work, the way we work in the future, will be driven by AI and Gen AI. Many of the big tech companies are based in the USA, and he would like to create a order of AI in the world. Now, do not let this slip your mind, because if you are doing business with the United States of America or with customers who are, and you are their suppliers, you will be impacted by that, whether you're in Asia, Europe, or anywhere else in the world. In Asia, this is very interesting, Michael, because you ask, is because we are having China here very close by, not only Singapore, but China, of course, has their own strategy. Maybe we talk about that in a different session. Mm-hmm. We Asians, if I may say so, are certainly interested very much in what the superpowers are both doing, because we would like to do business with both of them. So it will be very interesting to see how this pans out. I think on organizational level, we don't have to panic right now. This is a policy statement and policy paper, but it is full of headlines which will potentially impact your future operations, way of doing business with the West, and how you scale and grow. Rob, you are in the Middle East right now. What is the headline you would probably see in the morning?
Well, I'm with guys from the Middle East, Saudis here. I'm in Europe, but
that's correct. Yes.
The overall picture is the Saudis have invested very heavily. You would have seen the US delegation going to Riyadh only last month, and investing serious amounts of cash in building up data centers there, investing very heavily in skills, local skills, setting up local offices. So as far as the Middle East is concerned, they want to be right at the heart of this. And I suspect a very strong alliance between Trump and partners in the Middle East will accelerate that ambition. I think the Europe situation is different. And it was interesting. I was watching an interview with NVIDIA last night. And the question to the spokesperson was, there seems to be very little investment in data centers and infrastructure in Europe, significantly slower than anywhere else in the developed world. Why is that? And the answer was, we are expecting to invest a lot more in Europe. We see you've got the education and the expertise in Europe. You have a very rich heritage in manufacturing, and the capability is clearly there. You have it all to gain in Europe. Don't let the regulators get in the way. We are happy to invest in Europe, and you will prosper as a result. So I think the European situation, we may be a little bit slow in Europe to catch up with what's happening in the States, but there is great potential there. And that goes right back to the start point with this conversation. Will the regulations stop investment in Europe and the appetite of businesses here, or will the broader agenda of AI-driven growth win out, and the regulators need to work around that? That's going to be the fascinating call. But as far as NVIDIA is concerned, they're happy to invest, and that will happen in time. And the European businesses and academic institutions have it all to gain by getting involved.
Thank you, Rob. Yeah, absolutely. Look, this clearly is an unusual, atypical kind of topic, which we are discussing. Is a political component in there, but we think it's super relevant this week. It's relevant for your decisions, especially if you are internationally. I just want to point out two things here, just to kind of underline, what was said before. Number one here in pillar 3 is export American AI to allies and partners. So it's a clear statement. This is the dominance of the American kind of companies. And the next one is even more interesting. There's kind of one other country actually explicitly mentioned: counter Chinese influence in international governance bodies. So there's a clear frontier, which is in this paper. Again, food for thought. Have a think about it. Reach out for discussions, and how you can reach out. And this is really interesting, and we are actually excited about that one. I stopped now sharing this because we have something to share. Markus,
we are launching today. Launching today, we would like to invite you to join our WhatsApp community. This will be an easy way for you to stay alert on all of our lives we have been doing over the last many months. Any news we send in the future. One promise: nothing gets sold there. One promise we ask from you: you don't sell back. And there are no political discussions or whatever, the classic rules of social media, I would say. But if you would like to join, feel free. Of course, it's for free. It will always be for free. And we are just very interested in creating a community amongst ourselves in the world who, have simple questions, simple answers, and simple ways of getting ahead in the race and win in the race of AI. Thank you, Potus, for stealing our punchline.
And just to add one thing, Markus, thanks for that. It's clearly a two-way dialogue. So we're doing a lot of the talking, but we would love to hear your views, your opinions, sharing your experiences and sharing content as you see it, which will be valuable for the rest of the group. So looking forward to getting that engagement and discussion going straight away. So what's next? We talked last week about how organizations are getting started with generative AI and this concept of moving fast and moving slow. Can we expect the whole organization to get the vision, to be putting the investment and the resource behind organization-wide Gen AI adoption, or is it in fact more subtle than that? We need to find the right places to start, build confidence, build understanding, and remove some of the barriers which may get in the way of effective adoption. And Markus, if I can go back to you, you were framing your thinking last week. Where would you say is the right place to start, and where should we avoid starting?
I guess this deserves a conversation we will have next week, because we would like to give you sound bites of information every week. Rob, thank you for leading us into next week already. That was our cliffhanger for next week. And hopefully you have a chance to look at what has been published by the US in the last 24 hours. Don't get too concerned, but be informed. And if you want to be a game, always reach out to us. Thank you very much for today, and have a great rest of the weekend. See you. You don't want to stop, Rob?
Markus,